Welcome to GothCast Live. That's right, your Saturday night fright if we continue to do these on Saturday, which we have so far, because it's a good title. Anyway, today we got a David Bowie, that's really weird to do on live, a David Bowie retrospective, because it's GothCast Live right here. And we're going to be talking about, hopefully, the first two records of David Bowie. And this has been a super heavily requested episode. That's right, David Bowie. We got a whole bunch of stuff to show for David Bowie. It's going to be a long discussion, probably, I think, or short. I don't know how this one's going to go. I'm really going to see. Yeah, and then here we go. That's right, here we are. Yes, Dr.Sanders. And who do I have with me today? Of course, we got Cameron.
Surprise, surprise, it's me.
Yes, Cameron again.
I'm back.
Yes. So, are you excited to talk about David Bowie today?
I'm actually very excited to talk about David Bowie. I got a lot to talk about with David Bowie.
Cool. That's good to know, because we're going to be having this early period. So, okay, I'm going to start off by saying this is one of the most heavily requested episodes for GothCast ever. I mean, it's up there. It's really up there. And for years, people were saying, please cover David Bowie. Please cover David Bowie. And I see that Evan is commenting, Cameron, let's go. That's right, Cameron, let's go. David Bowie. The Labyrinth. Well, it's kind of weird because it's like the two heads. On the camera, it looks even weirder. But the David Bowie's one of those ones where, of course, super influential to goth music over the years. From everyone. I mean, look at The Cure. Of course, Bauhaus is one of the more obvious ones. Just so many bands have covered David Bowie stuff and done homages. You have like Human Drama doing stuff. I think probably most bands have covered Heroes in some fashion. So David Bowie is a major influence on goth music as far as the style, the attitude, the blending of things that you see, of genres that you see a lot in goth bands. And I just think that I was trying to make this episode for years. Like, we're talking years. I would say probably 3 years. I kept thinking, man, I should make it. And then I kind of didn't do a lot of episodes for a while. And then I kind of thought, well, if I come back, I'll do David Bowie. And I didn't right away. And then I kind of was like, okay, I think my New Year's resolution, as we talked about, was doing more GothCast stuff. I was like, I think it's finally time to tackle David Bowie and the super expansive web of things that encompasses David Bowie's career. Probably one of the most documented people in history as far as music. So it's hard to just weed through stuff without missing things. So we're doing our intention is to do the first two records today. That's it. Just two records.
Which I'd never heard the first two records before you told me, hey, we're doing the first two records. And I'm like, I never even thought about what are his first two records, like, ever. And they're unique. We'll get into it. I'll let you introduce I'll let you introduce these albums, but they're unique. But I only heard these like past 2 weeks, basically. I'm somewhat familiar with I'm pretty familiar with Bowie's work, but not a lot of these records, except for one song in particular.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Really, people know like one song from both of these records. It's not a heavily explored outside of that, like one single for this period. And it's going to be weird. We'll show the covers when we actually like cut to them, but we'll do that a little bit later. But both these records are going to be called David Bowie.
Yeah, David Bowie by David Bowie. Yeah. And then his second album, David Bowie by David Bowie.
Yes, exactly. So
a lot of Bowie.
There's kind of a weird thing with that. By the way, in case, I love doing my research on things. If I can recommend one book for David Bowie, it's going to be Starman by Paul Trinka. This is the book. Now, it ends, I don't know if there's an updated one, but this ends in like 2011. And it's funny because I think that was before David Bowie like came back and started doing a lot of stuff. So it's really funny that it just kind of says, well, he hasn't done much. And then, of course, the last few years of his life, he did a lot. But this is the book I recommend. It's, it's like about the average size of a rock biography. There's a million books on David Bowie out there. This is a pretty cool one. This is Bowie, the Illustrated Story. And his eyes are David Bowie in the Labyrinth. In case you're wondering, that's what the
eyebrows.
Yeah.
I love that look.
This is like just a pretty cool look at like David Bowie and a lot of cool photography, and it does cover from the beginning up to the end. So I forget if it does cover till when he died, but
does David Bowie ever end? Does he really ever end?
Well, it's like that thing. It's like, where did he go? He just went back to his home planet.
That's right.
That's what everyone says. And so, but my experience with David Bowie, we're going to talk about our experiences with David Bowie. How do we get into David Bowie? What do we even think of David Bowie when we saw him? Mine is like a lot of people of a certain age. You know, I'm anywhere from 20 to 400 years old.
That's right.
And so this was the movie. I'm pretty sure the first time I saw David Bowie was in the Labyrinth, showing on television. I think so. I think that was it. And because I don't remember seeing anything like before that, I don't think. I mean, maybe, you know, I probably heard like Rebel or something on the radio, but I didn't know that at the time. And so I think like that was, I'm pretty sure the Labyrinth was the first time I saw him. And of course, you know, I got way into Bowie later. In fact, I've heard all his records. I've heard going way back, like I've explored every single thing. And as far as the music, I got really into it. He even had a video game that's pretty interesting. Yeah, he's in the video game. But Labyrinth was my first thing. And of course I was like, who the heck is this guy? You know, because he sings the songs and they're all really campy and everything. But I think like a lot of people, like, that was the thing. And he wasn't super active for certain spans of his career. You know, he had taken a break in the 2000s and stuff. And so there was, you know, there was a lot of legacy stuff. Of course, I got way into Ziggy Stardust stuff and all that era and all this glam rock stuff. But I really find, unfortunately, that a lot of the later stuff is unexplored because, you know, it's not as gripping or historical, or people, you know, it's like it's divisive in some of it. So, but I really dig so much David Bowie, and I know we're going to dig into a lot of it, not all of it today, but that was my first thing. And of course, the spandex. You can't, you know. What do you say about that? I mean, you got the spandex.
Well, you've worn it, so you know what it's like to be in the skin of Bowie.
I do. Yeah, I have worn.
You've worn on numerous occasions. You've
yes.
worn one of the best David Bowie costumes
yeah.
I've seen. Especially when you had your hair dyed like the exact shade of that red. It was really funny. And it's like a pretty iconic thumbnail of yours too, right?
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a good thumbnail if you're on a David Bowie.
But there's like, yeah, it's so funny because there's yeah, people always say I either look like David Bowie or like, there's a whole bunch of people who are like, you look like this guy. And like, I think it just depends on how I do my hair.
Yeah.
Like, I swear. So that's what we got going on. What about you, Cameron?
My introduction to Bowie is a unique one. I actually think a lot of people probably have the same experience that I do the first time hearing Bowie. If you're my age, if you're around my age, you probably first heard Bowie in the movie Shrek with the song Changes.
What?
Shrek 2. Shrek 2 features the song Changes by Bowie.
The ogre movie?
Correct. You are 100% correct. When I was very, very young, probably the first Bowie thing I ever heard was from Shrek 2, the song Changes. And I remember that being my favorite song of that entire movie. So it made an impression on me at a very young age. But I didn't really get back into Bowie until, you know, later. I didn't really know who that was. I just knew I liked that song being a little kid. It took me a while to like get back into Bowie. You were so shocked that I chose Shrek.
I can't believe you're telling me right now that you're like, I found out Boy through Shrek.
Yeah, dude. Yep, that's right. What did you think I was gonna say?
I don't know. I thought you were gonna be like, well, I first found a vinyl record and it was It was the first one, of course. I started with the first record, and then going from there, I found his character to be quite divisive once the 80s hit.
This is like looking in a mirror. This is absolutely crazy. Yeah, it's pretty good. Shrek 2 is my introduction to that. Yeah, because Shrek turns into a human in that one, and then they play changes.
No, I know what happens in Shrek 2. You don't need to tell me what happens in Shrek 2. But I don't know what I don't know what to think about that.
Well, funnily enough, when I was younger, I wasn't as into music as I am now. I was more into film than anything.
Shrek.
I was more into Shrek and film. I was more into film than anything. So music was kind of secondary to me for like a while. I didn't know music unless it was attached to a movie somehow. So it wasn't really until like high school that I started getting into music. And that's when I started discovering Bowie a little bit more, was in high school. But it's really when he put out his Black Star album is when I was going through listening to a lot of his discography. I pre-ordered Black Star when it came out. I was super excited because I just started getting into Bowie. I was like, new Bowie album, this is going to be great. And then, like almost the second it arrived to my doorstep, he unfortunately
that was the thing, right? Didn't like release the day he died or something?
Yep.
It was
and I was crushing because this was like a dude who I'm like so excited to get into. He just put out a new record. I'm really, really passionate about getting into him. And just like that, taken away. I remember going into school the next day and my teacher being like, I guess you guys heard the unfortunate news, right? And I was like, thank you. Someone's talking about it. He goes, Seahawks lost the Super Bowl. Travesty.
Man.
And I was like furious. I was like beat red in my chair, being like, you don't understand who we lost. I was I was mad. But that's kind of my start of Bowie. It's actually Black Star.
Wow.
I started at the end this time. Usually Donnie is right. Whenever I start a movie series or TV show or band I like, I usually start right from the beginning. I work my way chronologically. I really like experiencing things as they've been released. But Bowie, I almost went backwards. I almost started at Black Star and worked my way back.
To some bands, you're like, oh my gosh, you got to slog through like 5 or 6
That's
albums.
why I like it, because it gives me appreciation for like when they hit their stride in their career. You get to see where they came from. You're like, whoa, good job, boys. You really pulled it together on this one. But yeah, Black Star.
You know what his career is like? It's like an onion.
It is. It's got lots of layers.
It's got a lot of layers. You know? Donkey. I can't believe David Bowie. That's a Shrek. Huh?
Dude, you're never going to let that up. I'm going to be hearing about this every band practice.
You're right. You're so right about that. I am totally not going to let that go. Okay. Yeah, one of the things that is interesting about David Bowie that I think is that there's so much stuff to his career. Not only the albums, but he did so much other stuff. Like he did. Oh, by the way, on the comments, Mono, was it Durian Mono, says, thanks for the burrito suggestion. I suggested, there was a messaged me on Instagram and said, I don't know, it was like, what should I get for lunch? A burrito taco. And I'm not, obviously I respond very late on those things because I'm not on social media very much, aside of the memes. And and so I said breakfast burrito all day long. You got to go breakfast burrito. If you're ever trying to go burrito or taco, any time of day, breakfast burrito. I like the ones that have the potato, the egg, the cheese, and then outside of that, it's really up to you if you want to go anything else. But I thought that was important here.
You like spinach in your breakfast burritos?
I'm fine with that. Yeah, I like it. I like it when it's got some pico de gallo and stuff going on there too.
Nice.
But it's like the minimum it has to have potato, egg, cheese, and I think I'd go from there. So.
Well, I hope your burrito was well.
Yeah. I really hope. I hope that we're able to assist with that. But okay, so let's get into the history of David Bowie. This is the first time we're doing it where you're gonna kind of see the way that I do the regular episodes. So there's like 60 or 70 episodes of the GothCast podcast. It's a lot more structured than you think it is. Like for the actual episodes, there's a lot that actually goes into those. We're gonna see how we do it live, because it is a different environment. But normally I have like a million notes. I have all this stuff. I mean, so I'll be referencing my notes a lot for this. So just try and stay with me on this. Okay, everybody ready? Okay, David Bowie, born 1947 in Brixton, London. By the way, if I say anything not properly the way that people in those areas say it, Feel free to say that it's pronounced this way. Anyway, David Bowie. Birth name, David Robert Jones. I know. I know.
What?
I know.
No!
David Robert Jones. And, growing up, David Bowie, people did note that he was creative. I think one of his school teachers was like, he has an adequate voice, or his voice is adequate, which is hilarious in retrospect.
It's a very English way of saying that.
Yeah.
Very adequate. Very adequate.
So, one of the things that does, fairly normal parents, but he did have a lot of like medical things going on with his family. I think his brother suffered from schizophrenia really bad. He had a family member who had been lobotomized when that was still a thing. In case you don't look up that, I'm not going to describe what
Is that in the book you suggested, Starman?
Yeah, Starman. Like I said, Starman is without doubt, I think,
it's like the quintessential Bowie book.
For me,
yeah.
So there's a lot of, Bowie has a lot of books that range for certain eras, right? Like there's a lot of like the Ziggy Stardust era. There's like David Bowie in the 80s or whatever. Overall, this is like, I think, the best of everything, because you're not going to get a ton of books that go in depth as far as his early career, or like when it started to get bad in the 80s,
right.
or all the weird, especially all the legal stuff that he got into with like his publishing and licensing and stuff.
Interesting.
Like there's a whole thing about like 2000 when he bought his catalog and the legal stuff of that. Like I've read a whole bunch of books. This is my recommendation for this.
Cool.
But yeah, they interviewed like tons of people who are like super obscure, especially for the early stuff.
It's like closer Bowie friends than like collaborators per se.
And they're not necessarily, and it ranges too from people when he was younger. A lot of people say he was pretty rowdy,
Yeah.
In fact, going into this story, I'm going to try and, so of course his eyes. People notice the eyes, right? One eye is a different color and dilated all the time, right?
Yeah.
It's not a contact. He wasn't born like that. He actually got into a fight with his...
He wasn't born like that?
No, it wasn't, no.
Whoa.
In fact, people thought it was... People often think that it's like, he had this illness or whatever it is.
God,
like
what's it called?
condition.
Yeah, I can't remember it, but...
Let's see. They say... let's see. People often say heterochromia iridium, which is like, that's what people think it was, but it's not.
That's just where you're born with two different colored eyes, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when he was, let's see, how old was that been? A teenager. When he was a teenager, his friend, George Underwood, punched him in the left eye during a fight over a girl. And apparently his fingernail scratched his iris and like messed it up. And so after a series of operations during a 4-month hospitalization, they pretty much said, well, this is as good as it's going to be. And so he didn't have good depth perception in that eye, and the anoscoria, which is that pupil thing.
Yeah.
And then it kind of, because of the way that it looked, it's like the color like kind of got diluted a little bit. It looks kind of crazy. What's interesting about that? So the guy, they say, George Underwood, you would think like, man, not gonna be friends ever, right? Like, you just messed up my eye for life. Like, we're not gonna be friends at all, man.
Lifetime creative partners.
He's gonna be on a couple records playing guitar.
No way.
Yeah. So,
oh wow. Huh.
So you would think that would be, and I think there's a quote where it's like later he said, it's like, yeah, I got a fight. He hurt. I got hurt. Whatever. He goes, but that was like the best thing that could have ever happened. I think saying it as a joke. I'm sure it was a pain in the butt to deal with that his whole life. But, it was because he got injured. It was like something about like, and the book goes into depth on it a little more about like he had tried to hit up his girl or something, and like they got in the whole thing, and it was like, what are you doing? And then it was pretty bad.
Did his visibility get affected at all by that, or just cosmetically?
I think it was. It was like his vision was messed up, and then the depth perception was really terrible.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I guess if your eyes super dilated, you'd be taking in more light than you would need at like a lot of times. So
exactly. There was a lot of different people. Like, he did have an interest in a lot of American music, like a lot of people from London, UK.
Yep.
Where, of course, at that time, this is the 50s. And so, but he did describe Little Richards.
Oh,
Tutti
cool.
Frutti.
Little Richards, yeah.
He said it was like hearing when he got Tutti Frutti. Hey, Tutti Frutti. said it was like hearing God.
Yeah, that's an accurate statement. I can agree to that statement.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a great song.
Yeah.
And hearing it for the first time ever on a radio in that time period, that must have been so exciting to hear Tutti Frutti.
Yeah. Somebody came from somebody from his family came back and like had bought a whole bunch of like American 45s.
Oh, cool.
And he said initially that he wasn't really that impressed with Elvis, but then like he said later he saw like the reaction that it had, and he kind of got it more. Where he's
That's
like,
cool.
Oh, once like they saw why people like it, yeah, it was kind of different. But he was not a fan of Elvis initially.
Yeah, well, I mean, that makes sense. Like in Little Richard and stuff like that. I mean, all the music up before that was like crooning old love songs that had big orchestric swells, which is nice, or big band swing, which is also I absolutely love. But hearing Little Richard, that's new and exciting and crazy. So yeah,
compared to all that big band stuff that like litters used record stores, it's true. It's different,
Yeah, poor Glenn Miller and Benny Goodman just ending up at the bottom of the bin, dude. The bottom of the bin.
Exactly.
These guys were legends in those times.
Yeah, but then we got going into his first band or his first music. 1962, he's 15 years old. He formed his first band, the Conrads. It was guitar, bass, rock and roll. Wow. What a crazy thing.
The new exciting craze, rock and roll.
Exactly. That didn't go too many places. So he ended up doing a whole bunch of these singles. So these are all kind of, there's basically one compilation of all these singles, which is nice. It's called Early On, the one I sent you. There's basically one compilation of all David Bowie's early stuff. So I know that the first record, everyone's like, well, he has a record called David Bowie. That's the first record, right? Well, it was really hard to get a record deal back in the 60s because it's like, 45s were still very popular. This is before Sgt. Pepper's and stuff. So, people just release some 45s and then maybe they bundle them in a compilation. That would be, we have an album now. So you got to remember that. So there's a whole bunch of singles released from the time that David Bowie starts making music, and it's like different lineups of the bands and stuff. In fact, we have a couple different names, and this is all just what you could think of as early David Bowie, but it's not, a ton of it isn't really like in his catalog very much anymore, at least not in this form. But if you want to hear the early David Bowie, as early as it gets, we're going to break down some of these songs before the first record. So for the first couple songs, it's like he was David Jones and the King Bees. So it's David Jones and the King Bees, right?
King Bees?
Yeah,
like bumblebees.
Like bumblebees, yes.
King Bees, that's awesome.
Eventually formed a band called the Manish Boys.
I like that. Wait, that's great.
Yep. Then
that's great.
Released some stuff under Davy Jones. Which became, yes.
Did he have to change that because of what I'm thinking of?
Monkeys,
because the Monkeys? Okay,
so
cool.
Was Davy
That's
Jones
awesome.
for a minute, but then changed it because of the Monkeys.
The competitor to the British invasion, funnily enough, which is the Monkeys, has that. That's so funny.
Yep. And then the last band is, I'm pretty sure the last band that he was in was called David Bowie and the Lower Third.
Okay.
So that was the...
Do we know what the Lower Third is referring to?
I don't know. I think it was just popular to have that kind of stuff in sort of like...
blank in the blanks.
Like the Swing in London type stuff. I think that was kind of sort of capitalize on the band names of that time. I like I said, I've done research for this episode probably 4 or 5 times. And so I have done so much research on this stuff. So I kind of have a soft spot for some of these earlier songs because I've just kept re-researching them. Yeah. But the first one I think is cool. Its very first song is 1964, May of 1964. It's a single called Liza Jane.
Liza Jane?
Yeah, and it's got this really gritty, gutty, it's just totally like the Rolling Stones type, like it's sort of that, like real gutty, really hot mic, just sounds all distorted, and And this song, I mean, it's great. I like the song. Actually, it's I think actually outside of the David Bowie thing, I really like it. There's a couple songs from like the early singles that I really do like. A lot of it is just like basic blues. In fact, they did a cover of Louie Louie Go Home. They did like I Pitied the Fool, which is like, it's just all these kind of like blues standards or sort of like that sort of thing. Not necessarily the craziest thing.
No, but again, in like 50s and 60s, half of making music was just doing a cover of somebody else's tune that had already been written and then just redoing it with your band. Maybe a little faster, a little slower, or in a different key signature or whatever. You add another bass part. But, you look back and none of the people who you think wrote the songs in the 50s actually wrote those songs. You have to go back bands and bands and bands. That's a cover of a cover of a cover of a cover, and you finally get to the original source. So, yeah, it makes sense for all these early bands. That's why when you hear, I feel like, because the Beatles started as a cover band too.
Oh, yeah.
The Black Sabbath started as a blues cover band. I think a lot of these bands just started as that because that is what the market was at that time, was like, oh, I can make money singing other people's songs. Just doing that.
Exactly. That was that's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
It was like there was a lot of, and plus a lot of songwriters, like the people writing songs for you, or you get a deal, like, hey, we can record a thing, and then they're like, well, we got a song for you.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of do it in your own style, or they even a lot of times they do like, well, we have the style here, we release records like
here's
this.
the music, just play it for us.
Yeah. And there's like a whole bunch of different,
or better, we have a band that's already played it, you just sing it, and then when you go on TV, you guys just do this in front of your instruments, and then we'll just call it a day.
Exactly.
Here's a block of cash for you.
Yeah, and he was a part of that type of music industry back then. But Liza Jane's really cool. Again, I'm pretty sure on these couple early things you have that's George Underwood, the guy who messed up his eyes playing the guitar.
That's so funny.
Like, that's insane. Like, now he would go like blast him on Twitter or something. Be like, can't believe, so.
Did Bowie play an instrument up until this point, or was he just strictly a vocalist?
He did dabble with like the keyboards and stuff, and he did play guitar. Definitely played guitar, but
he wasn't the one recording guitars on these? These were just composing and vocalist?
Yeah, so these were like, he had like all kinds of, like he would have a guitar and then lead guitar and a bass. I mean, he wouldn't do most of that. I mean, he was trying to be a singer. Yeah. And even the people who worked with him at the time were like, he had kind of trouble doing both. Like, he couldn't really play the keyboard and then also do the other part. As
a musician myself, it is difficult. I don't blame him. It's hard, man.
Oh, I
don't know how you do it on some songs.
Well, hey, no, I practiced that. That's the
I
whole
know
thing.
you do. I know you do.
I sit there for so long and just, it's a trick. I mean, it's really a trick to do that kind of stuff. But I did want to say that, actually, George Underwood, I just found this so interesting, is that he did end up, so not only was he on David Bowie's early records, right? Because he ended up collaborating with him later, designing the album covers for him and doing like the Ziggy Stardust cover and Hunky Dory
cool.
and
Hunky Dory is such a great.
He also did a whole bunch of T-Rex stuff.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah.
And
okay, there we go.
Mata Hopple, of course, and like he just did a ton of
T-Rex makes sense, dude. That's so funny.
Well, we have some more T-Rex stuff coming up soon.
Oh, cool. Sweet.
So there are definitely some connections between, especially because Mark Bolan stuff gets involved, and it's kind of interesting. But the other song I want to mention is a song called "I Dig Everything."
I dig everything,
and it's like super like that swing in London, like like with the keyboard.
So
I mean, it's just the Moog and stuff. It just sounds exactly like what you probably pictured.
That shrill alto sax in there.
Yeah,
that's good.
It is something. It's very but the reason I mention this is because way late in his career, like in 2001, he re-recorded a whole bunch of these songs.
Cool.
And then made them like, at the time, his like reality version of more rock standard type of thing. He did it like that, and some of them weren't released, and some of them were leaked, and then some of them were re-released, even just like a couple of years ago, and nobody knew that they existed. So this early period, overall, I don't really think it's actually worth exploring that much. I mean,
from a historical standpoint.
From a historical standpoint, it's super interesting.
Right, yeah.
It's very interesting because there's so many people he's working with. You really see the thing where he's kind of a chameleon and trying to slip into these styles. And his voice at the time isn't gritty enough or developed enough, or maybe he's not developed enough as a person to be able to like really get into the root of these like deep bluesy songs.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like a young guy doing blues songs. He's like, oh yeah, I'm hard, and life is so difficult. And, and I know it is, but it just the way it sounds is
so
like a young guy doing it. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just, especially with the way later he would do all the soul stuff and all. You hear that and you compare it to that. It's just there's just not as much depth to it.
Yeah.
And plus, like, they're not really framed on albums. It's just like a single and then another single, and then every time a thing comes out, it's a different style because he's trying to like make it big and adapting. And it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're interested in it, I would say look up some of the early stuff. There's literally an album called Early On that has everything. It's like literally all of it. That's just every single release before the first record.
That's cool.
Yeah. And speaking of which, the first record, David Bowie in 1967. There he is, right there. So this is the album we're going to be talking about. Look at that head of hair.
I love it. I know I love his hair in this. So good.
So this is going to be...
It's too long for the time period, though. You better get that haircut.
I have a really interesting thing about this, coming up about his hair. So this is going to be the first record from David Bowie. And it's, again, just called David Bowie. And this is something. It
is. It's a lot. I mean, it's not a lot, but it's not what you expect from Bowie, because you expect a lot from Bowie, and then you listen to this, and it's the word I use to describe it is rickety. It's a bit of a rickety album, in my opinion.
Yeah,
but it's charming. I should also say that it's very charming, and you can definitely hear a lot of what he was going to put in his later music, like the ideas and concepts of them, tucked away in this earlier one. But it's not as developed.
I agree. I mean, I very much agree that there's a certain amount of this that you really see that is kind of interesting as far as his later stuff. But it's just so rough and not playing to his strengths a lot of time. His whole thing is that the style of this one is like it's Baroque pop or whatever they call it, and he was mimicking. Man, do I have it written down? He was mimicking another singer, and everyone mentions it inside of when they're talking about this in depth. Is that he was mimicking somebody else, which is obviously he become famous for being a chameleon of sorts in his later years, being like, oh, I like that. Let me just pick this and that. But it was such a direct ripoff that everyone was like, oh, this is this guy. You're ripping off this guy. The songs themselves, this all came from a deal. So he was trying to, every single one of these singles I talked about with the previous thing, he would release a single, it wouldn't do well, he'd get dropped. He would release a single, wouldn't do well, get dropped. So even David Bowie can get dropped from his labels. So don't worry, don't give up. But this kind of became a thing. Somebody basically negotiated a deal for him. He was switching management all the time too. So he got on to Decca Darum. Is it Darum? Darum. And so there was basically this push. I mean, they believed in him at this time. They're like, oh yeah, there's something here, with, I think it's Rubber Band was the one. Rubber Band. And so they were like, okay, let's do a whole album. And he's fully David Bowie at this time, And this is basically a whole bunch of session guys with him. This isn't really like a band. In fact, during this, he was playing I think it was maybe the King Bees or something, or it was like the last version of like a band that he was in. When they're making this record, he is like, they break up. Or they're like, no, I'm just going to be David Bowie. And so I think he was signed as David Bowie. I don't know if it was like going to be one of those things, but at the time, the middle of this album, they're like, no, it's just David Bowie. Like he's basically going to be a guy. So it's kind of interesting to see all the people that are on this record, but it's and some pretty good guys. I mean, they have like some serious session players. And some of the collaborators he worked with forever. I think Tony Visconti is in this. I think. I forget if it's this one or the next one. But the music in this.
Yep.
It is really something.
It's all over the place as well. The style, I mean, it's all, you're right, it is all like the Baroque pop type things. But it cannot decide whether it wants to be a rock album, a like theater show tune album, or
definitely.
or just straight up ballady, easy listening music. But that's what I would say. If you like, I would genuinely say if you like musical theater or show tunes and stuff like this, you might actually really enjoy this album. There's like a lot of that style of music that comes through in it. It also reminded me a lot of Rocky Horror Picture Show for some reason.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why. Just the vibes of it was just kind of that early camp kind of...
Which is funny because it predates it.
It does, yeah.
By like quite a few years.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if Rocky Horror was a little in tune on this album. Maybe.
I mean, it might have... Hey, who knows? I mean, we'll talk about how his career went after this.
Okay. I just know the music, but yeah.
By the way, I did adjust some of the audio from last week, so let me know if it sounds better or worse or just okay or whatever. It should be louder than it was last week overall. But yeah, this album, I do like a lot of stuff on it, but you're so right. It is like very show tunesy. Yeah. But it kind of decides if it wants to be dark and say a message about, that you have like
the world and save the children.
Yeah, you have Please Mr. Gravedigger, which is like almost like a radio play type of thing, but it's like a song, but just spoken word. You have...
It's like a nursery rhyme. It's like kind of a spooky nursery rhyme, actually, is how I think of Gravedigger.
A lot of stuff on this is like a nursery rhyme.
Yeah, you're right. The way he rhymes words are like very literal and very forward, just like there was a girl in a jacket. She was sad.
Yeah, I know. Well, I think this will give you a total idea if you like this album. The very first song, Uncle Arthur. Literally starts off with a boop, 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 like little flutes and goes, Uncle Arthur goes to bed early. Uncle Arthur watches Batman. I mean, it is.
It's so good. It's like British children's cartoon music or something.
It is.
It's so funny.
It just hits so you funny. With a wall of what the heck am I listening to? I thought we were going to get into some gritty rock and roll.
I know.
This is the 60s. What? And you're just like, it's like, pa-da-bum-pum-pum. Like, I mean, so much of this album is like, it's like a Disney type of song.
You mentioned Rubber Band as well, which kind of has this like marching band, circusy, it's got like a lot of army drum type thing.
I mean, man, it's... And don't get me wrong, like there are parts of it I really like some songs on here.
Sure. What's Joins the Gang? Is that the name of the song?
Join the Gang. Oh yeah, the honky tonk piano type.
Yeah, that one's cool. It's kind of a weird, almost. It almost weirdly feels like an anti-hippie kind of song in a weird way, where it's like about the dangers of counterculture as well, where like you can find sanctuary in this, but at the same time, it's not an easy life to choose to kind of be in this counterculture state and be what it's kind of like to be in a band as well as also what it kind of talks about.
Yeah, you have a couple weird songs like that. It's like even like the subject matter is not consistent at all. Like it's you have like Love You Till Tuesday, which seems like a love ballad. You have There Was a Happy Land, which is like again kind of like a positive outlook. You have Little Bombardier, which sounds like a Disney song, but it's like pretty dark.
Yeah.
And you have We Are Hungry Men.
Oh, I love this song. This is actually my favorite one off the entire thing, man. I love this song.
Which is like this huge like dystopian type of like the lyrics are about like an earth that's ravaged and we need food, and it's just like...
And they regulate how much air you can breathe, and if you're breathing too much air, then they'll send you away or execute you or something. Yeah, it's that one's a weird one, but I absolutely love it because I love the spoken word that's in the beginning of it.
Oh, yeah.
I just think the characters are so funny. It seems like an album that has a lot of characters in it, and none of these characters interact with each other ever.
Well, you have Arthur come in twice, so you have, at least as far as I...
Oh, do they? Oh, okay. I wasn't paying
Arthur
attention
comes
close
in
enough.
on the first song, and then in Join the Gang, Arthur's a singer in a band.
Oh,
So he's
you're
making
right.
his way through all kinds of stuff.
Arthur's going
Arthur's
somewhere.
busy.
I don't know about this David Bowie character, but this Arthur guy,
wanna know what's
I
up.
think he's going
He
somewhere.
likes
Donnie.
Batman.
He does.
So, yeah, don't get me wrong, there is some good stuff. When I Live My Dream, I think is my favorite. So
That's a cute one.
it builds up. It's got like kind of more layers. And this album is not poorly produced at all.
No,
Like-
it sounds good.
Like, it's got some serious like power behind it. And I know it's been remastered a billion times because it's David Bowie and stuff. So it's going to sound even better.
It also has like a really wide instrumentation range. Like it doesn't just use a standard rock band. There's
not
a
at all.
sitar thrown in there. There's lots of strings, horns, and lots of other really cool symphonic noises that they use all throughout the album. He's got a wide range of stuff he wanted to tinker with and mess around with on this album.
Well, one of the main things that's so obvious, sticks out on this album to me is just when I think of this, I think of like a tuba going vroom, ba-da-da-ba-bum, ba-ba. There's so much of that kind of stuff, like
Yeah.
womp, 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 like
Yep.
it when you hear it, it's just like
It's goofy. It's a
is like a
goofy album.
cartoon.
It's a goofy album.
yeah, it is weird. And here's the thing, and I said this in the when I did The Cure like a million years ago. Do you think this album? Do you think anyone would still be listening to this album if it wasn't David Bowie?
God no.
Yeah,
God no.
That's kind of
God
my
no.
opinion.
No, this remember when we were talking about Glenn Miller and Benny Goodman being at the bottom of the record barrel? This would be one of those albums. And the worst part about saying that is it looks like one of those albums. You go to the record stores and you flip through, you know which ones are trash just by the cover of it, man. I'm so sorry to say it, Mr. Bowie, but this is going to be one of those ones where if I was flipped through, I'd be like, oh, great. White guy's face on an album from the 50s. God, I'm out of here. I don't want it. Move past.
It is, unfortunately, I think that's its biggest problem is that in the context of what type of record it is, when it was, is that it's sort of generic in that sort of thing, and there's some strong stuff, and you see the stuff bleeding through. You
I know.
totally do.
I know.
But overall, it's just not that great of a record. I know some people really love it, and
It's cute. It's a cute. It's a
Yeah.
cute record, but yeah.
I just think like I've tried many a time, and I just say nothing really ends up sticking in my playlist from it, and
Yeah.
I think it's a lot like The Cure in that the first Cure record, it's funny because people always be like, I love that record, whatever. I'm like, yeah, but you also probably got into the band through Disintegration. Or people be like, no, there's the first record I listened to because I was able to go back chronologically. I'm like, the only reason it was even listed for you to listen to is because the band's so famous, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that album has some good songs. The Cure's first record has some awesome songs on there. And there's some good songs on here. But when you look at compared to the Gateway albums, it's just like
Yeah.
this album becomes basically an oddity in a very odd catalog.
Yeah. It is. It definitely is.
Yeah, I mean,
I really do like seeing. Again, this is a great album if you historically want to look at Bowie, how he developed, how his music developed, how his style developed, because there's a lot of really cool things that foreshadow what he was going to do later in his career. Some of them he knew, and then there's others that I was making a connection with. What's that song? When I Live My Dream, because he's kind of talking. Yeah, because he's talking about like fantasy castle. I will do away with all the evil trolls of the land. And it got me thinking, I'm like, did he even know that he was going to play the Goblin King in a fantasy movie?
Trolls,
dude, I was like, this is so perfect. This is perfect.
Come on.
I was like, he wrote a fantasy song and he is going to be one of the most famous fantasy characters later in his career. He didn't even know. I just think that's super cool.
Yeah, I know. This was definitely Bowie trying to figure out how to fit in his own way.
It's kind of a sketchbook. It's Bowie's sketchbook. It's like, I've got all these like thousands of ideas that I want to do. None of them are well developed. Let me just throw them down.
Yeah.
Throw them down on something.
Well, that's kind of what I got for this. Well, I mean, there's you can always talk about this. There's a lot to this record.
Well, do this record.
But this record didn't do very well.
What?
Yeah, I know. It didn't do very well.
What, the album we've been kind of trashing this whole podcast didn't do that well?
Like
Are you
said,
crazy?
I think it's interesting, but it's just, man, it's one of those things where it's Emma Papaya says he manifested Jareth. Didn't do very well, and Darren was like, didn't really have much confidence. I think they had confidence in Rubber Band doing well. Like they thought that they would be like, because there was stuff like that doing okay.
That's good. It's catchy.
At the time, you always got to put it in the context of the time.
1967.
There was stuff.
Summer of Love. There's that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Woodstock hadn't even happened then.
yeah. I mean, yeah. So this went on to be kind of a sticking point for him. He went in very confident to this album. It was like, yeah, was pretty confident, and then of course
did not leave confident.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and everybody says like, yeah, he was like pretty sure that this is going to do well. He was like, yeah, you can do this, and that would change after this.
Just do it again.
Yeah.
Just do it all over.
The one other thing I want to say is that there was some leftover stuff that kind of ended up becoming. There was a song called "The Laughing Gnome." With
another fantasy themed song, and you didn't include it, Bowie.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
How dare you?
Not on the record. This was a single that was released after, and I think it was also released by Darum. And literally, it's like Alvin and the Chipmunks, where David Bowie is singing to like a laughing gnome, going, "Oh, I'm gonna go down to the whatever." And he's like, "Oh, you gonna go down there?" I mean, it is weird.
Is this David Bowie talking to a gnome?
Yeah, it's
That's
like
cool.
It's like the story about there's a whole bunch of puns about gnomes and stuff. But I did want to mention this because this song became like a meme to David Bowie over the years, where we kept bringing it up.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they were like, well, and there was a fan poll. There was like a poll that they released to where you could say like, request, like, what do you want me to play on tour? And NME ran like a joke campaign to like, everyone go vote for Laughing Gnome.
And then that's so good.
So then everyone kept voting for it, and then he canceled the thing. He's like, I'm not doing this. This is ridiculous. Not doing the Laughing Gnome. It's like this
Dang it.
Like this novelty song.
Why? Come on, have a little fun, Bowie.
I know.
Have a little fun, David.
I know. He wanted anything to do with Laughing Gnome.
I get it. He wanted to be taken serious as an artist. I get it. I get it.
But this really became a weird thing where all this early stuff, and we're gonna see it later. I'll talk more about it later. But a lot of this early stuff actually got re-released once he became super famous. So
okay, cool.
Even the Laughing Gnome. So all this stuff obviously didn't do well. There was this is a really weird promotional film that was going to be made because they were like, this isn't working. There was a film. It was basically just a whole bunch of music videos for, it was going to be a film called Love You Till Tuesday, the name of the song,
nice.
Of course.
Yep.
Which had a whole bunch of songs from the first record. And then he wrote a new song for it called, I don't think it's going to be a big one. It's called Space Oddity.
I don't know.
Oddity.
I don't know if I heard that one.
You hear about that one?
No, I don't think so.
I don't know. It says it might have been kind of known.
Okay.
Yeah, so
good segue.
Space Oddity actually doesn't come from that first record, or from the first new David Bowie,
right?
1969 album. It came from this movie. It was literally just, I've seen it. It's a series of promotional film, like music videos.
Okay.
Before music videos were a thing.
Right.
It's like David Bowie just walking around in like a abstract thing, and this is whenever you see that really weird music video for Space Oddity. Where they're just turning the camera and he's like trying to walk in space like this.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm in space, It's from that movie that was, it didn't even get released until the 80s because they were like, this isn't gonna work. So they just shelved it, and then when he was like super famous 80s David Bowie, they released it. Like,
that's crazy.
Yeah. But they demoed that song, and like it's a really weird version in that. It's like what they consider the demo or single version.
Huh.
So if you want to hear the original version, go look at that version of the music video. It's like really strange. But of course, they were like, whoa, this is going to be a big thing.
Yep.
And so he was obviously inspired by 2001 Space Oddity.
Yep.
Which he's like, whoa, this is crazy. This is psychedelia. This is all stuff. And this leads us into...
Which one was Space Odyssey Kubrick released? Was that 67 or 68?
68.
68. Wow. Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about the next record, leading into it. David Bowie from 1969. It's
so futuristic.
This one right here. Can you believe it? It's this one right here.
That one.
David Bowie from 1960. These live graphics are awesome.
I know. I love this. Too much fun.
So, yeah, this is again. It's called David Bowie. This is the one you probably know as David Bowie, or you might notice Space Oddity, because it's been re-released a whole bunch of times as Space Oddity. And it's still a weird record.
It's still weird. It's not quite Bowie, but this is like the first step for Bowie.
Yeah.
One small step for Bowie, one large step for Bowie kind.
Of course, you gotta remember when this was released. This is 1969, all right? So let me see.
1969.
Yeah, 69. So this album, it was able to, of course, Space Oddity was the single. Like, this was the big single. It was
the first song on the album, yeah.
David Bowie's first hit. It was they demoed it, whatever. And it's funny because there's one guy who was like, yeah, it's not going to be a hit. What are you talking about? This is stupid. Who's this David Bowie guy?
Yeah, I get it.
Oh, by the way, if you want to know where Bowie comes from, I forgot to mention this in the beginning. Bowie is the Bowie knife.
Ah!
The Bowie, it's got a knife.
It's interesting because I've always heard the knife is pronounced Bowie and the person is Bowie. So I don't know if that's just his British pronunciation of Bowie, but I know that one gets... I know both of those get mispronounced like 1,000 times a day because people call Bowie Bowie and Bowie Bowie.
Well... Anyway, I don't know.
Let us know if you know what the true pronunciation of either of the names are.
Yeah, I would love to know. But yeah, this basically became his redemption thing. And they talk about a lot of people who were in the studio were like, yeah, he was way less sure of himself. And I think he had just got married or something around this time. It was like he basically kind of changed his philosophy on it. Before it was a little more like, oh, he believed in himself a little more. And then he kind of became more of what he would go on to be later, where he would just go up and kind of pick at people to be like, what are you into? What are you into? Whatever. And then kind of like try to figure out like, oh, so that's what people are into right now, and kind of picking things. And in the studio, there was just like a thing where he wasn't, he was basically listening to more people, being like, well, they have ideas, they want to do this, so then it became this whole thing of like way different than the first record, where he's like, I'm so confident, I know what I'm doing, these songs,
yep.
Like it's cool, we're all gonna believe in this. This is the one where he was tested on that one, and so then he became like, well, give me ideas, like, let's collaborate a little more, let's do that. And I think there was a whole thing about negotiating for an actual record for this, and of course there was a record made, but it was really on the basis of Space Oddity that this thing was made. What'd you think of it?
That was a good album. I liked it. It's leaning more into the rock sound that we traditionally know of Bowie. It's using a lot more of the instrumentation that I would akin to him. He's still got some remnants of the symphonic stuff left in there, which is really, really cool to see.
Better. It's so much
better. It is better. It is a better approach. And I think it's for the reason of what you were saying, is that he was taking collaboration at the time. He was a little more open to kind of letting other people have the reins on it a little bit. And he's also not trying to emulate someone else. He's just trying to do something new, which is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting into some of the songs too. Of course, you have Space Oddity opens the record.
Yep.
It's the version that we know. Like,
yeah,
it's not like there's a couple different versions, different mixes, and of course this album has been remastered, remixed, and I mean just a whole bunch of times. So we're
Gone through the ringer. Yeah.
Well, now it just sounds like ridiculously amazing because it's just been filtered down to where you can't hear anything besides the instrument.
But the original's nice because it's well produced for the time, but it's not of our standards, which is great because it puts you back in that spot. And it is supposed to be kind of a hollow feeling song in some places. It's supposed to have that emptiness in there because space. It's supposed to be about emptiness, space, floating around in a tin can. You want to feel floaty. So I think the mix on this is super good. It puts me right back to 1968, a time I've never been to.
Yeah. Well, I think there's
1969.
69. Well, when the album came out, but the song was.
You probably wrote it in 68.
I think it was. Well, that's what I think. It was filmed. Definitely, it was written then.
Yeah.
But I think you see this album, and when I see the production of this record is more. There's still like not a defined thing of like. So many of his later records really push David Bowie's like voice and stuff to the forefront, and like they treat him. It's weird to say they treat him more just like a guy.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Because you hear there's songs where the vocals are mixed down and there's super big reverb on them. There's like, whereas in later, they'd probably be like, this is David Bowie. Strip it back and push him up front.
Yeah.
But the songs are just kind of, it's sort of all over the place. You have a whole bunch of folky stuff. You have more rock oriented stuff. And people said like, this is David Bowie does Dylan.
Okay, I can kind of...
Some of the songs...
I can kind of see that.
Some of the songs, for sure.
Yes.
I can hear it. And
I think it's really just David Bowie redoing that first album, but better. Like, it is still not as Baroque, but it's still, like, folky, kind of... It's still disorganized. Like, not a lot...
it's all over the place.
Not a lot really blends together. There's still symphonic stuff, but the stuff that he did keep from the last album, he just did better.
Yeah,
so like
flow is
it is disorganized, but it's not as disorganized as the last one. It's not as cheesy. It's a little bit more refined and tightening up the screws a little bit, as we say. So yeah, I think it's good. I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, it's. I think it needs almost like a reorder of the track listing or something because you have it's.
I agree with you.
I feel like it could just flow better because it's like you have these songs that just don't really match very well
coming back to back at you.
Yeah, and so it's like it'll be like the Space Oddity, then like a rock song, then like a folky one, then like it's just really strange as far as the layout of track. And plus back then you were also kind of limited in how you could like do an album as far as the track listing because you had the vinyl platter had so much space.
You had to make sure. Yeah, you had to make sure that you weren't going over the time limit, and also just depending on your record label and whoever they're working with, you probably also maybe just didn't have a say in how the album was going to get structured time-wise. A lot of the times that was left up to the mastering engineer. It's really only been in like concept albums or recent albums that we've given a lot more leeway to the artist to choose, hey, I want it in this way. A lot of the times they were just like, well, the mastering engineer knows how the album's going to flow good, so just let them do it. Because you just came to an album with a collection of songs, not really an idea for it. So
you got no time limits now. I mean, people are struggling to make 3-minute songs.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, there's a 9-minute song on here.
Which one's 9 minutes?
Signet Committee. It's 9.5 minutes long.
Whoa.
And this is what I'm talking about, where it's people say it's like very Dylan-esque because it's like he has the breakdown where he's like, kick out the jam.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's that one.
Can you believe? Can you whatever? I just want it. Like, it's like the preaching type of stuff in the songs. And so there's definitely some of that where you can see, like, some of the hippie stuff. I mean, it's for sure all over this record.
I don't know if you know this or if this is totally unrelated. Is when he says kick out the jams, is that a reference to the MC5?
I'm sure it is.
Okay, cool. Just double checking. It's so specific. Kick out the jam!
It is so incredibly, like, just...
Because that whole album of Kick Out the Jams is really preachy. Like, that song's great, but if you listen to the rest of Kick Out the Jam's MC5, like there are a handful of songs in there where it is just like a backbeat and like young people just being like, we're gonna take it back. This is gonna be our year. It's our country.
Yeah.
We're the people. We're young. Let's do it. It's so funny.
I know.
I love that.
There is definitely some of that mentality on this about like very flower people-y.
Yeah.
You have Memory of a Free Festival, which it's like a very slow build-up, which I love the song.
Yeah.
Like it's got like the Moog type of stuff on it. I'm gonna talk more about that. But the cast of this album.
Yeah.
But it has this whole end part is like a build-up. It goes, the sun machine is coming down and we're gonna have a party.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just like, it's like 4 minutes of that where it's building and getting like doing the hand claps and everyone, like a whole big thing. Total hippie type stuff.
Yep.
And I think he actually does that a lot better than he was doing that Baroque pop stuff. It works because he was doing a lot more of the 12-string stuff, and you see him on the TV stuff.
Yeah.
This is, oh, by the way, talking about his fashion, this is where we see that David Bowie's a chameleon of fashion. I'm big on fashion myself.
Big hair change from this album from the last album.
Yeah. Well, it's
huge
2 years.
hair change.
So you gotta remember, it's 2 years, and he'd also starred in like I think like a theater or like maybe another small film or something. So when you actually see some of the promotional images from 68, 69, or before 69, he actually had cut his hair and he wore a wig. That was like the mod wig.
No way.
I don't think on the album cover, the 67 album cover, that it's a wig. But in the promotional stuff, so like the original Space Oddity music video and stuff, it's a wig. And you can see, because we can able to have it such high resolution, you're like, oh, that's a wig. That's totally a wig.
That's rad.
So his hair and his whole style went from being like more of the mod type of look to hippie. He's got long curly hair. He's got, the flowing shirts. The flowing shirts. Yes, he's got the long sleeves. He's got the 12-string guitar. He's got all that kind of hippie stuff going on. And this would be like, he's kind of adopting that for this record because it was sort of like like I said, he was trying to latch on to something. And going on from this record, he actually felt like Space Oddity was a one-hit wonder. He's like, man,
I'm done.
I'm screwed.
I'm done. Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna there was no other real big singles from this album.
Yeah, that's almost the bummer about this album is it starts with Space Oddity and you're like, man, that is and it's smart, but it's damning because it's such a strong start. It gets you right into it, and you're waiting for something as big or as epic for the rest of it, and nothing just hits that spot in the back of your brain that song itches, dude. It's so weird. Yeah, I can totally understand why you would walk away from this being like, that's it.
I know. He really felt, well, you gotta remember, it's like this album failed in 67.
Yep.
Releases Laughing Gnome. He has it has some positive press, but he's like, this Gnome song. Yeah. It's like, what, am I gonna be known for this Gnome song?
Sure. Films a bunch of stuff.
Makes a movie and then it doesn't get released.
Yep.
They're able to negotiate this deal for a record. And that was the whole thing where they were like I said, certain people didn't believe in the song. They were like, what was the song? Like,
did you hear his other song, Laughing Gnome? I mean, I really don't got much hope for this guy.
It was just kind of a thing. I think it was a whole problem to even negotiate for the record to be made. But it was on the basis of Space Oddity that the record was made.
That's kind of cool. One other thing I like to add about this album, and it's probably just because the other one is, again, in a Baroque pop style. And that first album is like almost entirely in 3/4. It's like almost entirely in waltz time. It's just 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then whereas the second David Bowie album, David Bowie. I don't know if there's a 3/4 song on that. I think he went straight to 4/4 and he was like, this is what's in right now. I think the 4 on the floor is what's in with the kids right now. So it's just, I think that's another thing that makes it such a stark difference from one album to the other. And the biggest difference for me is literally just the timing of the album. Going from 3/4 songs to 4/4 just kind of gives it a different feel and opens up a lot more possibilities for him to stuff in a little extra music at the end of a measure where he could have been.
Yeah, and plus it is a very intricate album. It doesn't. Here's my thing. It doesn't feel like a band.
No, no, it doesn't.
And it's not. It's really not. In fact, the cast of characters on here. By the way, if you want to know my favorite songs, and I think my actual favorite song that isn't Space Oddity is "Memory of a Free Festival." I just really love the slow keyboard stuff, the Moog and all that. The Mellotron. There we go. I was trying to think.
Mellotron. That's a good one. Nice.
And all that. I mean, I like some of it. Also, an occasional. No, Janine. Oh, I love
Janine's
Janine.
a good song too.
Janine.
Yeah,
man, love that one.
Wait, he had a Mellotron on this album?
Yeah,
That's early, dude.
Well, you know
That's
who plays
crazy. Is it Paul McCartney?
Rick Wakeman.
Rick Wait? No way.
Yeah, from Yes.
No way,
I
dude.
was like-
That's so cool.
I was like, who? What?
How did you score that, man?
I don't know.
What the heck?
You have all kind you have some people who I don't really know, but so you do have Tony Visconti on this record. Tony Visconti would go on he's so prolific. He's so much good stuff is from him, but he plays bass on this and he helped arrange stuff for this album. But Tony Visconti, he would go on to work with Bowie so many times.
Cool.
But you have David Bowie, and he does a whole bunch of stuff on it. He does acoustic guitar, does some organ stuff, and you just have a series of just other guys, just session players, John Honk Lodge and John Cambridge on drums and Terry Cox on drums. So it's all over the place. And they would talk about how when they would write it, they would basically, David Bowie would strum a song and be like, oh yeah, here's the thing. And then he would just be like, so
what do you want to do?
You guys got an idea? I'm just going to play it. And they would build up the songs that way,
That's
with
cool.
people coming in. So it was very free-flowing.
That's kind of how we write our songs a lot of the times, where it's bring an idea and then you just kind of play that idea over and over till something kind of sticks to the wall. You play it differently each time, and then eventually it kind of okay, it's starting to funnel into what it is going to be.
But then I can also expect that you're going to be there.
That's true.
So it's not like I don't have two bass guitars, three bass guitars, and two drummers, and a cello guy I've never met. I think that's what you hear. You hear some songs where they seem really tight, really jammy stuff on here, and then you have some songs which are 2 minutes long.
Yeah.
It's so it's kind of all over the place in that.
So funny.
But I mean, it's way better of an album overall than the 67 album.
Yep.
I mean, no doubt.
67, listen for historical purposes. This album, you can actually probably get away with just listening for pleasure, and it's a good album. It's a good album. Not his best album, not the best thing he's ever made.
Oh, not even close.
But it's still a solid Bowie album.
Yeah, absolutely. And several of the songs were reinterpreted and readjusted for later stuff.
Yeah. And
actually, when this was released, so in America, so this album is just called David Bowie. It's called David Bowie. Technically, the official title is David Bowie, right? But when a whole bunch of the stuff was when Ziggy Stardust hit, right? Well, let me backtrack. Album's released in America. In America, the album is called Man of Words / Man of Music.
What?
So and it has a modified, a different picture. It's similar,
but
it's a different picture on the cover. It's all faded and washed out.
What is it? Man of what?
Man of Words
Man
Man of Music.
Man of Words, Man of Music.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's got
Is it David Bowie? I guess, yeah, David Bowie. David Bowie, Man of Words, Man of Music.
Yeah, and some of the songs were actually cut from it, too.
Okay.
I think so they wouldn't have paid me royalties. But the album, it did okay, but it still wasn't really a major hit. They were going to do more with it. They did release some more singles from it, but obviously nothing hit like Space Oddity.
Yeah.
And so they were okay, I don't know. So we're gonna see what's gonna happen with the next album, Hunky Dory. We're not covering that today, but this is gonna be. I
love that
album. But this was really the beginning of Bowie as we know it. This was really kind of got some success.
Yeah.
He is, and also you're seeing that he's able to adapt. He had a ton of life changes. In fact, people said around this time that when he was doing the first record, that he was more carefree and fun, whatever. And then people were like, oh, he was way more cutthroat around this time.
Dang. That's funny because, as you were saying, his vibe gave off the hippie kind of look with the hair, but he was very tight underneath, which is a stark contrast from his first album, which is where he looks very uptight, mod, whatever, but he just, whatever, just carefree, just gonna throw stuff at the wall.
Yeah.
It's a cool juxtaposition, man.
Yeah,
what a fascinating character, Bowie.
Yeah, for this time period, people would say, like, yeah, it really seemed like he was trying to figure out, like, well, what do you do? Like, what can I use
of you?
Yeah, like,
what can you do for me?
And people said that about him, and like, and not just one person, but he was really driven. I mean, I think he was scared that his career was over, and even after this, he got some success, and he's still paranoid. He's like, well, I had a hit, I'm gonna be a one-hit wonder. I'm freaking out, and
sometimes that's what it takes in the music business, especially. It's just gotta be direct. You gotta just unfortunately see musicians as a good tool in your tool chest, and you collect your tool chest. And I think he was trying to probably just exercise that, but at an early state of his career, he's probably a little too aggressive and forward with being like, yes, I will use my tool chest. And like, you have to remember, but there's still people at the end of the day, Bowie. At the end of the day, there's still people. Yes, they are musical tools, but they are people.
Also, I don't know if we mentioned it, but I just want to say, of course, Space Oddity, one of the reasons that it catapulted to fame is because of the moon landing.
Yeah, it's same year that the moon landed, 1969.
It was only like a couple months, I think, when they did the
reissue. That's so cool, man. That's
right. They like did a thing where like it got reissued like right around that time or something.
That's super cool.
Oh, I also want to say too that for the first record, the 1967 record, it was released like a week before Sgt. Pepper's. Yeah.
Yikes. Wow. Yeah. Good luck. Good luck competing with that, but
there were some comparisons made in the reviews, whatever. But it was like, I'm pretty sure it was like David Bowie, like the 23rd of May or something, and then like the 3rd of June or something, or like it's either one of those, like where it's reversed or something, where it's like right around Sgt. Pepper's came out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, if you see the inside gatefold or any of the other art for the 1969 album, it's trippy. Oh my gosh.
Was it a double album or no? Or it just had a gatefold?
It had well, it's like, they had so many different configurations.
Right. But it was like a single sleeve on front or on the back, I guess, and then just a hardcover gatefold on the front. That's cool.
It's got like, oh man, it's
Continue with the blue theme?
Yeah, it's like this trippy painting. I mean, you have to see it. It's like nightmare fuel.
Okay, cool. That's
so fun. This did get re-released, obviously, when David Bowie became a huge star in Ziggy Stardust.
Yeah.
And it was re-released. And I remember seeing this. I remember being so confused.
The re-release?
Yeah, because the re-release is like cover David Bowie. He's like, like it's just like the Mick Rock photo. And it says Space Oddity.
Huh.
So the album, like, they renamed it Space Oddity, but the cover is like David Bowie with like the Ziggy Stardust hair just like kind of down a little bit.
Cool.
And so I remember seeing that and being like, what is that? Like, what? Well, I don't get it. Because then when I saw Ziggy Stardust after the fact, I didn't get why that. I was like, that's a Ziggy. Like, I saw the music videos later, and I was like, why does he look like that? Like the old David Bowie. Like, why does he look different? I thought he was supposed to have like orange hair.
Yeah.
And then they also re-released the Laughing Gnome.
Yep.
Again,
that's
as
awesome.
well. I did want to bring that up. So all of these kind of got, once he became this giant singer, all of these things got pushed again, and some of them became hits again.
Laughing Gnome, of course.
Of course, Laughing Gnome.
Go check out Laughing Gnome.
Number 1.
Don't forget Laughing Gnome.
So this is really where you just start to see it, and leading into Hunky Dory, it was complicated for him, but he did have success. He had people who could back him a little more, and he had a vision, and he has some of the players we're going to see for the next couple years. Anything else that's weird? I feel like there's something weird. There's so many things that are weird.
I think it's really cool. I think especially if you're a musician or a creative of any type, maybe you have some doubts about yourself or whatever. I think these are great albums to look for and listen to, just because they are someone who a lot of people attribute perfection, greatness, poise, grace, everything to. And you listen to these first 2 records, the rickety dude. And I think, like, as a creative, it's super cool to be like, we all have to start somewhere. We all have to
Yeah.
start somewhere. I'm sure David Bowie wasn't the proudest about these 2 records. I'm sure maybe at the time he was. That was his everything. That was his life. Later in his career, I'm sure that's not what he was looking back on. But as a creative, I think we just have to put those first couple albums out. Just know they're gonna suck, man. They're gonna suck, but you're gonna get better from there. Your first few paintings are gonna suck. They're gonna get better from there. I think that's a cool.
Yeah.
It's a cool look at a creative.
Yeah, I think that it is for sure a what do they say, demystifying the devil type of thing.
Yeah.
Where you're like, he's so, like, everyone's just like, he's just so great. He's not like anyone else.
He's never written a bad song ever. None of his songs are bad.
Yeah, and then you see some of these and you're like, okay, all right, it's a little different, but you see he himself was also like, hey, this was so hard. This was, there's a whole bunch of stuff here.
Yeah.
And so I finally, you know what this is? This is the first episode of David Bowie.
Woo-hoo-hoo, we did it!
That's it. I'm so
After patiently waiting on GothCast.
It was like 3
Finally.
years in the making, this episode.
3 years.
There was so much to cover.
There
It's such a weird time. It's so hard to, like,
Where do you
there's 8 pages of notes here.
For the first 2 albums that both of us are saying, I don't know if you should listen to it, but it's fun. Like,
Well, I think that's what's hard. Is you try to have a nuanced view of something that's difficult.
Yeah.
It's not just like, when we get to friggin' The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and Spiders from Mars, it's like the whole album's just amazing.
Yeah.
And you should be like, yeah, man, this song rocks. This song rocks. This song rocks.
Yeah.
Hey, Hunky Dory, this song rocks. It's like you have to talk about an artist who is so amazing and really finds his groove. It's like, here's all stuff he did that isn't great.
yeah.
Like, or is just an oddity, and there's a reason you don't really know it, and even people who love him are like, this is just weird.
Yeah.
So
That's so cool. When you finally do Scary Monsters, Bring Me Back, because
Scary Monsters.
that is my all-time favorite Bowie album. That's I should have mentioned in the beginning, but that was one of the first ones that also got me into David Bowie, was Scary Monsters, because I think it's the first Bowie album I ever owned, actually. I'll talk about that more, but yeah, I inherited it from my uncle. It was the first Bowie album I ever owned, and then it was Black Star. So,
Nice.
amendment to my statement at the beginning. My first one was actually Scary
Lies.
Monsters. Lies, I know. I'm so sorry I deceive you all.
well, we did it.
We did it.
Finally
David Bowie.
did it. Oh, so good. Anyway, this has been GothCast Live, David Bowie Retrospective Part 1, and hopefully we got Part 2 coming up soon. If you guys have any ideas for shows you want to see live, want to hear us talk about, delve into, I'll do a weird amount of research no matter what, unfortunately, because I'm always interested in this stuff.
I'll be here. I'll be here to talk about it.
Emma says, I thought the first album was Shrek 2. I can't.
I
remember the 60s Shrek.
I remember the Shrek too.
I remember 1968, right?
Yeah.
Mike Myers.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Don't forget to check out our band, Dr.Sanders.
Check out Dr. Sanders, the band.
Lots of good music.
Spotify.com.
Yeah, we got our EP Iodine out. We got a lot of cool music on the way. We got a single in the works right now, actually.
It might be our Laughing Gnome.
I think, look out for our Laughing Gnome that's coming out very, very soon as a single, and we're working on an album, so we got some stuff that we're working on. Any other GothCast things that they should look out for in the future?
Man, I don't know. We're keeping up these streams, and I haven't announced that we're going to be doing them every Saturday at whatever time. We're trying to figure out if we can keep doing them, but we've done 3 weeks in a row, which is the most consistent we've ever done anything.
Yeah, that's true.
Ever. So I hope you guys are enjoying it, because we're trying to make this a thing for your Saturdays, to where you can just come and enjoy your Goth Talk show here with us. So, and I see by the numbers of the views we're getting on stuff that people are seemingly enjoying it. So it's really, it's cool. I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. I'm glad when you interact with us. Again, you can hit me up on Instagram at GothCast or GothCastRadio@gmail.com. That's
You can't find me anywhere.
Can't find Cameron anywhere.
Can't find me anywhere.
So, we'll try and keep up what we're doing. If we adjust it, we'll let you know. Follow my Instagram. Probably get better updates there. I still will do like the posts, like where you can post on Instagram, like where you say, "Hey, I'm doing this."
Yeah.
But probably, I don't know. Instagram's probably better for. I don't know. I don't know how people look at stuff. Anyway, that's what we got. GothCast Live. I'm Dr. Sanders.
I'm Cameron.
And make sure you stay spooky.